Welcome back to Sci Talk, and today, guess what? More Star Trek. We're going to be doing the next episode in Season 1. This one is called 11001001.
All right,
so let's get into it.
There was not much there. Sorry. Go ahead.
Fine. Let's get into what happened. We usually, give a bit of opinions before we talk about what happened, and
During
to keep
and
it
after.
short. But to keep it short, I would say this just isn't the greatest episode. So let's get into why. I won't say it's the worst. It's not even in the top 10 of the worst. Maybe it could make the cut. It isn't like it's just horrible, but it's not good. So what happened?
Let's get into it.
Here's what happened. The Enterprise is at a star base for repairs.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they're docked, and a bunch of the officers are off the ship chilling, and some are on the ship chilling. But these alien race called the Binaries are there, and they've helped other ships upgrade their computers, and now they're upgrading the Enterprise's computer.
We think.
But turns out they really need to hijack the Enterprise to go save their whole race of planets. But they've deemed that, they can't ask because then they risk being told no. So they run a covert operation that everyone's onto, even Riker. Well, that anyone's paying attention to him is like,
something's up with these guys.
Or rather, Riker specifically speaks on how they're acting suspicious.
A little suspicious, right.
So either way, they succeed at taking the ship by making it seem like an antimatter leak is going to destroy the ship. And they get everyone to evacuate off. But for some reason, they keep Riker distracted in the holodeck. And then they forget Captain is there. So he happens to still be on the ship too when they escape and start heading to save their world. They are dying, and their plan is for Riker to come out of the ship by the time they reach the world, and their computer, by the way, did I mention the Binaries are half computer, half alien beings? So they upload all the data from their civilization, which is about to die.
Whole civilization.
Because supernova is happening, and they didn't know how soon it was going to happen. They thought they had more time, but they didn't. So it knocked out of it caused problems. So they went and downloaded their whole race and then put it on the Enterprise's ship.
Which is the only ship that had a big enough computer
for that to work. And and they're dying, passing out by the time this is done. So they knew this was going to happen. So they needed Riker to come and download them back into their alien bodies to access the file and to get all of the binary
information back down to the planet.
Binary information back to the planet and back to them. And they were completely willing to deal with any sort of, legal repercussions for saving their planet, which makes sense.
Right, makes sense.
So, on the surface, this doesn't sound like, there's not really that many red flags, but once we get into it, you'll see there's kind of a few problems. Yeah. Such as, holes, and there's a B-plot that's very boring and weak and loses its luster after, a couple minutes.
It's not really a B-plot. It's really part of the main plot, but it's like their B-plots that they usually use. But it's really just...
And we say that because of how much time has been given to it. So,
way too much time.
Yeah, so in the end, they saved the Binars, and it's all good. There's no hard feelings.
Yeah, this one didn't have a B-plot.
Yeah, technically it didn't have a B-plot. But once we get into it, what I would say is a semi-B-plot, or whatever you want to call it, is Riker on the holodeck.
On the holodeck, right.
So now that we've got through with what happened, they saved the Binars, good job. Let's get into how we felt about it. You can start.
Okay, so the writing of this episode was all over the place. It's obvious that it was multiple writers, and I'm not sure that that's what took place, but it seemed like one of those classic case of too many writers and really has no cohesiveness,
or
it doesn't go anywhere for real.
Right, or maybe too many ideas. Same thing.
Right.
Because in certain portions, the tone of what's going on feels a little bit weird and feels like it was kind of jut in. But to really talk about it, the Binars, I mean, what ruined this show to me especially is the holodeck side plot.
Well, let's get back to, before you get to this holodeck side plot, because the holodeck is the biggest portion of this whole episode. I mean, it's like...
Which makes me want to say there really is no antagonist and there really is no mystery. No. That's some complaints we can start with.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say about the writing and stuff, it's like they didn't have enough script. So they had to fill up the time frame with scenes of panning through the hallway, extra long, different things, and then they had a big scene where the ship is bagging up or the ship is pulling in, and it's like they drag it on with no dialogue. They have senior officers just gazing at the ship pulling out when they're stealing it.
And it's not extreme, but it all adds together to where you can see that there's not much going on. And here's why. Just because I said there's no antagonist and there's no mystery.
No.
Right? So that leaves a lot of open space. Why is there no antagonist? Because the Binars barely do anything.
And they short little people.
They weren't positioned to be an antagonist in the story.
Absolutely.
Once they took the ship and enacted their plan, you don't even get to see them. You don't get to see their reaction. You don't get to see them struggle to go against the Enterprise ship in any form or fashion.
Right.
There's no mystery because they foreshadow it so heavily.
Right.
That these Binars are up to something. They even have Riker say that, I don't trust him.
You've got the bridge. Keep your eye on them.
Yes, sir.
And then they all looking around at Wesley. They make it very obvious. Right. So when things go wrong, he's like, it's the Binars. The last time we see the Binars, they, after they do their plan, which is to steal the ship and
take it home and...
After they steal the Enterprise, the next time you see them, they're dying, lying on the floor. That's why I say they're not even positioned as an antagonist. There was no one who was really onto them to kind of stop them. It's kind of they did it, and then they were dead or dying. Then they saved them, and had a conversation. The episode's over.
The end.
Does that make it bad particularly? Not necessarily, but when you combine all these things together, they weren't a good antagonist, and it wasn't even mysterious.
So let's get to the holodeck.
So moving off the Binars, which is the main point.
Which is the plot.
And they barely have any dialogue, even between themselves. It's just like have the Binars and have them look suspicious while pressing buttons on the computer. So, moving to the B plot, which was...
not the B plot, the subplot, I guess is big better to...
Subplot...
They were distracting Riker in the holodeck so that they can do what they're doing. That's the subplot or the B plot or whatever it is.
It was kind of like it relied on luck because what if he didn't feel like going to the holodeck?
Exactly.
Early in the episode, him and Captain were talking about what they're going to do with their free time, and Riker was like, I don't know. I'll figure it out like I usually do.
What about you, number one? You earned a rest. I've never been very good at organizing my time off. Something will turn up. It always does.
So he was kind of going around, just chilling, hang out, and then he goes on the... Goes on the holodeck.
And there's two binaries at the holodeck, and they upgraded it and enhanced it. And so he's like, okay, let me go see. And this is the part that was it could have been somewhat interesting, but they drew it out so long that it's just like boring. But the interesting part, he chose a place, a jazz club in New Orleans, a nice little venue on Bourbon Street around 2 a.m. with a jazz band. And it seemed like it would be nice, you start getting excited, and then it's...
So what happens on the holodeck and this side plot that I didn't even mention in the synopsis because it's, I mentioned it a little of him being trapped there, but they spend a lot of time there because Riker likes the upgrade of the computer, and somehow this holodeck person is more realistic to him in a way that's entertaining. Right. So he spends his time at the jazz club flirting with Minuet, this holodeck character who is acting so real. and eventually even Captain
And
Picard
guess who shows up? The captain.
Captain Picard shows up, and they're both kind of like going over the same thing. Oh, it's just so realistic. Oh, look how better this is, and then that's it. They're talking and flirting, and he's kissing. One thing I do like,
drew it out real long.
Oh, and here's a point I was gonna say. They drew it out real long, but they didn't use the opportunity for more character development.
Right.
You know, there was a little character development sprinkled through there, but it was mainly just the holodeck Riker flirting with Minuet.
Right.
So one thing that's
and then
nice,
the captain came in and he was like a third wheel.
Yeah,
you know.
and he was hanging around, but for long too. One thing I will say that was nice was they had Jonathan Frakes or Riker get to play trombone or, you know, get to act, and he was the only musician up there that looked like he knew how to play. And we're musicians, so of course we could go on for hours about all the musicians.
And we might go on for a minute.
But there's one thing we have to say. This is getting off the where we started, but one little side tangent we need to go on.
I'm the bass player, so let me tell you.
I'm waiting.
Okay, so I play bass. You know, that's one of the instruments that I play. And the bass player was an upright bass player, and his bass was sitting on the floor. And, you know, it has a stand that you adjust the bass for your height, you know, and usually it's around up here where it was like down here. And it was clearly that this dude was not a bass player. And then I'll let you tell about the piano player, because the bass player was in a lot more shots and he had a line.
Well, let me explain it where laymen can understand it clearly. When you play a bass,
upright bass,
it usually is standing up off the ground a bit. There's a little peg at the bottom
you extend,
and you can extend it. And this was a tall dude, and it was so low that it looked like he was, you know, it didn't look realistic at all, and it was very funny. We'll put it on the screen how it looks.
Right.
And maybe we even show him what a regular bass player looks like.
Right.
But he was the only one that obviously looked like, if you know anything about music or that instrument, that is like, dude, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Are you high? Are you high on heroin or something? This is a realistic jazz club from the 60s, 50s, and 40s. It's like, dude,
why
your bass is on the floor. Why is your bass on the floor? So... Yeah, and then if you look at the pianist, he's not really pushing any of the keys down. But back off the tangent.
Back to the
plot. They're just sitting there talking, flirting, kissing for forever.
Right.
And then they can't
out so long.
Here, when the red alert happens,
the binaries apparently isolated the holodeck to where they didn't get the alerts, and they in there just chilling. And now, why the captain staying there so long? I don't know. Most people would have been left out of there. You see Riker and his chick all over him, and she just kissing on him and touching on him, and you sitting there analyzing her, and y'all having a conversation. It'll be like, we can talk about the holodeck later. Enjoy yourself.
Well, he was. No, here's the thing. He was wandering around because of the club, which makes sense. He was wandering around the club for a while. Then he comes and sits with them, and it just keeps going and keeps going and going. Now, we'll talk about what I would have personally did to make it better, because there was aspect I like Parisi Squares, Worf, Tasha, or some other person. I was
going to get to that.
They were going to go do something off the ship. Beverly needed to do something off the ship. Deanna, I don't know. She's at Beta Z with her mother right now. Who knows?
She wasn't in this episode.
I wonder why. It's like they had
nothing for her to do.
They couldn't think of anything.
Because maybe she would have picked up. I doubt it. The binaries minds are so they're not robots, but their minds are like computers. And so she probably it'd be beyond her powers to pick up what they're thinking.
So that's what makes it a shame, is there was a chance.
They just took off.
Right. So what's a shame is there was a chance for there to be more character development instead of us just staring at Riker the whole time in the holodeck.
To wrap up the holodeck and the episode pretty much, because when the captain and Riker becomes aware that they're being Minuet is intentionally trying to keep them in the holodeck, it pretty much ends 5 minutes later, you know, and so they was in the holodeck for the bulk of the time, and it really wasn't the suspense that they were trying to make it. But
right, and some details I skipped over in the synopsis is that, you know, when they got off the holodeck, they realize it's been stolen, the Enterprise, so they go to blow up the ship. And then they go to, you know, self-destruct. The ship has been commandeered.
We can't let it fall in the wrong hands. We have to blow it up.
Which makes sense. That's the only reason it has a self-destruct.
They came into the starbase, and the binaries got on the ship and started working on the ship. All fine. And then all of a sudden, Data and Geordi notices that the containment field is deteriorating, and if it continues to deteriorate at the rate it's doing, the ship is going to explode in like 10 minutes or whatever. And so Data issues evacuate ship because they couldn't get the containment, and they don't know why it's happening, but they evacuated the ship because you can't figure out why in 10 minutes and save the ship. So they had to get everybody off the ship. And then all of a sudden, when everybody off the ship, right after they noticed that, I don't know, is it before or after, they noticed that the captain is not present, so they think he's still on the ship. They get a computer message about the containment field is regenerating. And Geordi is like, that's impossible. But the ship is bagging out now and nothing we can do. And they all sit there and just... just watch the ship pull out.
They wanted to trap Riker so that he could finish their plan, pretty much. He could save them access to the computer.
If necessary.
But for some reason, they didn't make it easy. They made it kind of cryptic. They were locked out the files. And Minuet, who was connected to the ship's computer and somehow had all the answers, didn't have the answers they needed. So if they were, banking their whole plan on Riker saving them, they should have made it kind of like idiot-proof.
They should have gave Minuet their whole plan.
They could have gave Minuet their whole plan, or they could have, since they're such computer whizzes, when anyone got to the computer, they could have had a message and realized that you just need to start us up,
right,
put
just
the data into us.
Hit enter.
But instead,
they
it's kind of
simple.
This convoluted, y'all need to solve the mystery type
for
situation.
Artificial.
What if they stayed distracted for way too long?
Right.
Right? What caused them to leave the ship?
Then Minuet was trying to keep them in there.
So exactly, if the binaries were dying, which I guess they might have been willing to die, but the thing is, they needed another step of their plan. They didn't finish their plan, then start dying, and it was just them. Everyone was dying, and they needed the last stage of their plan, and they worked so hard to be done by someone else, which is a big hole since you didn't
program Minuet or program the computer.
The person you wanted to do it, you're trying to keep them away from doing it by being distracted in the holodeck.
Right, and you didn't have no time frame where instantly Minuet just shut down.
Or Minuet goes like, you've got to save the binars.
Right,
it's time to save the binars. Like, what are you talking about, Minuet?
When the captain tried to get up and leave, Minuet said,
no, thank you.
Wait, please. Please don't go. You can't, not yet.
Oh, no, don't go. We want you to stay here. And Captain was like, no, I need to go. And she said, but we hadn't danced. Yeah, I don't dance. Well, have another glass. No, I need to go. And she said, you can't go. And then he looked at Riker, and then both of them stand up and like, what's going on here? Something is wrong. And so that's when they get, it's like, if they had to say, okay, I'll have another glass of wine, or yeah, I'll dance with you. They could have been in the holodeck going back and forth with Minuet forever.
Or like I would have preferred them to do. I haven't gotten to what I would do yet, but what I preferred them to do is like, if the holodeck's better, they should have had them doing all kinds of stuff in there. I know they have a budget, but they could have been like, we're surfing. We're in they have the Turellian Galaxy in this holodeck, but no, they're stuck with Minuet. Boring. That's a big hole. Another, I don't know if this is a hole. This may just be a logical thing that I don't agree with, is that the binaries are like, we didn't just ask because there's a chance you could say no.
We didn't have time, is what they said.
Right, no, but they said you might have said no. That's why we didn't ask, because they said Captain Picard is like, why didn't you just ask? Y'all might have said no, and we didn't want to take that chance. I don't like that, only because they could have covertly set up everything and then asked. And then if they said yes, that would have made their plan more expedient. It would have made it a higher chance of success.
Exactly.
And all it is a quick question. And now if the captain's like, no, or like, I got to call Starfleet. It's going to take us 6 months. And
Then you go on with your plan. You contact the other binaries and say, execute plan.
But with folks like Starfleet, for you to not think asking a question or being diplomatic or whatever, it's not like this Klingons. It's not like it's some alien race who you don't have connections with. They've got you on their ships, upgrading their ships, so you're obviously allies and trust each other. So I don't think a question was that big, so it kind of makes the whole premise based on like, it might have been even more interesting if they asked a question.
Right.
But all right, I would have had Riker playing Cool. That's
right.
character development.
I like that. We love that.
Have him talking to Minuet, being the Kirk style.
That's fine.
That's like
and then
2 or 3
go back
minutes.
to Jordy and Data talking to Beverly and her symposium.
I would have had Jordan and Data off the ship doing
Squares.
something else too, because why not?
Yeah.
And then guess what? I just thought of something. If Captain was in his office reading a book, let's say coincidentally he for some reason goes to the holodeck. I don't know why. You know, it's like
he's looking for Riker.
You know, it's like, I want to ask Riker a question. Goes to the holodeck, and then they meet up.
Right.
And that's why he don't hear the red alert. There's a lot of things you could have done. Also, if we're going to make the binaries the problem here, we would have not foreshadowed it so hard to where there is no mystery. And I wouldn't have made it to the next time we see the binaries. I would have seen the binaries during the stealing of the ship. You know, like when the ship is pulling off or is doing the warp core.
Right.
Doing the thing, I would have showed them.
Might have had one sitting in the captain. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, they didn't want to show them because they couldn't have them act like actors.
Right.
Whatever, that's excuses. I would have showed them. I would have showed them when they were flying away. I would have showed them after they stole the ship as not dead. Next time we see them after they do their big thing, they're just lying there.
And they get very little screen
time. So it's
time
anticlimactic.
During the process of stealing the ship and having the ship, you don't really see them. So it really it's like, what's going on here, pretty much. So they draw it out, a lot of dead space, what I call dead space, when they're showing scenes of ship movement for, it seems like hours. I know it's only seconds, but it's scene time is like you give all this time to see the ship move out or people watching it or going down the hallway. And it's like clearly you didn't have story. And there's so much you could have did with it. Even with the band, you could have hired some musicians and maybe have Riker playing a song, say Minuet. You got a request and go up there and get the bone again and play a fast song or something. Or
Minuet could have been a singer. But
or she could have been
a singer. 2 complaints that sum up how I feel about this. Anticlimactic, bad pacing.
Yeah.
And then if I had to throw a third one, missed opportunities.
And the writing was just all over the place, kind of. It was
anticlimactic.
Definitely
it was
a collaboration of different people and different ideas that they just smushed together, and they had a lot of space in between that didn't really connect to draw it out to the length it is.
Bad anticlimactic, bad pacing, missed opportunity for character development, especially for Wesley, now the more that I think of it. And he was the only one who was in a position, besides Riker, who was just chilling, even though he was suspicious. What?
Right.
You're suspicious of these aliens and you decide to go to the holodeck to chill? And they're in the holodeck working on it? What are you suspicious of? You're not doing anything. He didn't believe himself.
Right. Well, they do that all the time in these episodes in the first season where people be on to something and then it's like,
Which is fine. It's fine because that happens, but you left Wesley there and it would have been nice to see Wesley peel back the veneer, make it a mystery.
Yeah.
None of that. And so I'm done. You hear how I felt about it.
Well, I guess that we can wrap it up because that's it. The end. The binaries. It could have went to a night. It had potential to be a good concept, but it fell flat in so many different ways. Watch it. Tell us what you think about it. Definitely comment on, do you feel the same way? Is it so many scenes that's drawn out for no reason? We like to hear from you, so like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you'll notify when we upload another Sci Talk. Look forward to some more skits and fan films.
Yep, and that's our time. Our shore leave is over, so we better get back to the ship. Oh wait, the binaries are still in the ship.
Mine ain't working.
The binaries are still in it. Whatever.